So, Berto, internet dramas, emails, and sex scandals, I think we're going to get into today. I can't remember precisely. Let's get into it. What do you say, Umberto Castañeda?
Let's do it.
What's your middle name?
I don't have a middle name.
Oh.
It's unbelievable.
You should make one up.
It's unbelievable.
What would be your middle name?
There.
Oh, wow. It was like all the letters are silent.
Yeah.
So,
H.
My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist, Dr. Kirk Joseph Honda. I'm a therapist, a professor, and a podcaster and YouTuber. Who are you, Umberto?
My name is Umberto Castañeda, and I squeeze grenadine juice for a living.
And you're also a podcaster and a YouTuber. Listener Frank, he said, would you talk about Jean Pormanov, real name Raphael Graven? He was a 64-year-old French Army veteran and popular streamer. Recently, he died during a nearly 300-hour live stream on Kick. So just chiming in, what is Kick, Berto?
Kick is a platform like Twitch, sort of like YouTube, especially YouTube Shorts. But it is generally associated with a lot more like indie content, less regulations, less content strikes, that kind of thing.
So it's for Twitch people who don't want to be demonetized for stepping outside the rules?
Yeah, it seems that way. And especially in this case, it seems like abroad, they're even more lenient with content.
Okay. And so this Jean Pormanov, real name Raphael Graven, 46-year-old French Army veteran and popular streamer, recently died during a 300-hour live stream on Kick. For months, he had been subjected to humiliation, harassment, and even physical abuse on air, including slaps, strangulation, being shot at, and degrading challenges, often monetized through viewer donations. Just chiming in here, I remember seeing something, maybe Philip DeFranco talked about this on one of his episodes, but I remember seeing the aftermath of the death and the sort of tagline. But I asked you to look into this, so you're going to inform me more. But just reading more of this email from listener Frank, I think it would be interesting to explore the gray area of content for people who are psychologically vulnerable and the sick dynamic that happens between those guys. Because apparently on this Kick channel, there were a bunch of guys and they were kind of bullying this one guy.
Yep.
And at first it kind of looked like maybe it's all in fun and the victim, so to speak, is in on the joke, but then it kind of seemed like maybe it wasn't, and the guy dies. Why would someone do that voluntarily? Do you think Raphael was doing it consensually? Why did he accept that abuse? There was also Coudeau participating, a guy with intellectual disability. Regard. That's how you know that listener Frank is from France, I believe, because he finishes it with regard. Or I don't know how to. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So Berto, fill us in.
Yeah, this is horrible. I actually didn't know anything about this. I actually remember seeing thumbnails with streamer dies on stream or something like this, but I didn't click into these. So I didn't really know anything about it. So when you asked me to look into it, was the first time I actually learned anything about it. And I was horrified. As you mentioned, the real name was Raphael Graven, born in 1979, so younger than us, in Wipy, France. I don't know how you pronounce Wipy. Wipy? Not sure.
Is it spelled Y-P?
No, it's W-O-I-P-P-Y.
Oh. God knows.
Whoppy. Online persona was Jean Pormanov, and they call him JP. And he started off as a gamer, typical Twitch streamer gamer. He had sort of humorous streams where he would play games in maybe a funny way, make funny comments. I never watched it, but this is what the reports say. And he got popular. He had 600,000 followers on Twitch, for example. And he was regularly doing this. Unfortunately, there was a switch in the kind of content that he was involved in, maybe as early as 2024, where they started doing these physical and verbal abuse sessions. So he had these quote buddies or friends that were obviously not friends at all. A couple prominent figures. Again, I don't know these, but one of them's name is Naruto. That's the online name, Naruto. Real name Owen. And then another one was Safin, also real name is Safin Hamadi. And they were the main two abusers, but there were a couple others that participated. And
what kind of abuse was happening?
So it was a lot of things, insults, physical, like punching, like throwing things at him. The worst though were choking. Like they would actually choke him, like put their hands to choke him.
Like just out of nowhere, or was it a challenge? Like
they were doing a challenge to see how long they could choke him. Repeatedly, they were like that was during the last set of streams. That was one of the main things they were doing. Is these challenges to see.
So we're getting away from gaming content and just
it wasn't gaming related. It was just torture this person related.
Yeah,
and making tons of fun of him and like just verbally abusing him
and the fans are egging it on in all likelihood.
Well, even if they were horrified, they were watching. There were a lot of viewers, and the main guy, JP. Complained. Now, again, he was participating, but he was increasingly angry and increasingly demanding for them to stop what they were doing.
Yeah,
and
JP,
like
Jean Pormanov.
Yeah, the guy who died. Yeah. Now, this is horrible. So leading up, what was started happening?
He's raking in the dough.
Yeah, there is money coming in. There's lots of viewers.
So the question is, like, if he really didn't want to do it, then he could just not do it, right?
Right. There are folks that watched it that had been watching the developments that say that he felt trapped, and he also said that literally to his mother.
Like off mic.
No, on the.
Well, so that's the thing, you know, like you can't.
Yeah, I know. So the final set of circumstances started in August of this year, just last month, where they wanted to do 12 days of continuous torture. I mean, where they would slap, strangulate, humiliate, sleep deprivation, and feeding like substances to JP as well. In the towards the end, he had messages that he had sent to his mother saying that he felt kidnapped, that he felt trapped. And to the question you're saying, he sent those messages. One of the other dudes, Naruto, is the one that read him on the stream. Like grabbed the phone and read him. So I don't know, maybe they were legit. He said he felt trapped. He felt like he was participating in a jeu de mort, or game of death. Or maybe, I think she's the one that told him, you need to stop this, you're participating in this game of death, right? So they had these exchanges. He said, I feel like I'm kidnapped in their shitty concept. I want to get out.
Okay.
So, maybe it started off as like, yeah, let's do this, but I don't know that he was willing.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, then why didn't he stand up and walk out? But the thing is, like, they were physically punching him and abusing him.
Yeah.
So I think he legitimately might have felt trapped.
They lived with him?
I don't think so, no. I think this was like at someone's place.
Right.
Yeah. And
because presumably if it's his channel, it's his studio.
But they also are streamers. So it could have been their like so I don't know. Those details, I don't know. Because like I said, I didn't follow any of these people. The last thing that started happening is, like I said, they were doing these contests to see how long they could strangle him. And I guess they got up as high as like 3 minutes or something, which is ridiculous.
How is that allowable on any platform?
It should not be. It should absolutely not be. Now, here is the shock.
What was the record? Were they seeing how long they could strangle him before he passed out?
I guess before, yeah, I guess.
Like, what was the...
Yeah,
we got up to 3 minutes, meaning like he held his breath for 3 minutes, or maybe the blood wasn't getting to his head for 3 minutes.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I don't want to. But that's what happened. Okay, so then he, all of a sudden, he lays down. He appears to be asleep. The stream is still going. And some of the viewers start saying, is he okay? Like he hasn't moved. And so then one of these assholes throws a glass bottle at him and nothing happens. Like he doesn't move at all. He doesn't react. So that's when they realize he might not be alive.
Oh my God.
And it turns out he wasn't. He was dead. He died in this,
on the live stream
saw him lay down and never get back up.
And they strangled him to death.
No. No. He passed away in his sleep.
Wait, so start over. What
Yeah,
happened?
So after they had been doing all this abuse, all this, at one point he lays down in one of the low mattresses, but it's still all on camera. It's still all on the live stream.
And
he lays
he's
down.
like injured or what?
Who knows? He just lays down. And then the live stream keeps going. And after a while, some of the viewers point out that he doesn't look right and he's not moving at all. And then that's when one of these assholes throws the bottle at him.
So it could, I mean, who knows? But if we look at it objectively, he could have died from an unrelated.
Well, so this is how stupidly lame this is. They did an investigation. And the initial investigation...
Who did the investigation?
The police.
Okay.
The initial investigation concluded that it wasn't caused by a third party. He had heart conditions. He also apparently had a thyroid problem, but it's undisclosed like what thyroid problems. He was being treated for thyroid issues, and he had heart problems. And he passed away in his sleep, and they were thinking that it might have been a combination of natural health reasons combined with substances. Now, they were feeding him substances. So far, they have not charged any of these individuals, and they have not found that it was a homicide, which, of course, people are up in arms about because, like, what do you mean? Watch the stream. Like, what do you mean? But, of course, from the police's perspective, they're like, well, I don't know. We did an autopsy.
Well, and presumably they watched the video footage.
Sure. Yeah. And now, that said, there have been responses at the government level. There have been the Digital Affairs Minister, Clara Chapaz, denounced the digital Wild West atmosphere and demanded accountability from Kirk. Because a lot of people have been coming out and saying, like, how could you allow this? And this is not the only controversial, horrible content that they allow on their platform, especially, like I said, in some of these other countries. So there's been a lot of outrage and outcry against Kirk, that they should have never allowed this, that there should have been regulations in place, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the family is horrified, and there'll probably be lawsuits and who knows. But as of now, none of the people involved were charged with a murder.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so to get to listener Frank's questions, why would someone do this voluntarily? And do we think that Raphael was doing it consensually? Do you think, after looking into it a little bit, that he was consensually or not?
I watched not the torture parts, but I watched some of the bits where he's yelling at them and demanding. And I don't know, maybe he's just a really great actor. But considering, here's one of the things that happens on the stream. The abusers, say to JP, hey, you've got health issues. So if you die from this, you need to tell them, the viewers, that this is not on us. So like they actually are so aware of the risk. That this is why it's mind-blowing that they'd be like, well, it seems like he died of natural causes. Like they're so aware of the risk, and they actually want to have him say, like, kind of release them from all guilt from this thing. Yeah. And he appears generally like distressed, and those texts to his mother seem distressed. But I don't know if in his mind it was all, he was just going along with an act. I don't know.
Yeah. Given what you're saying, and I remember some of these details in less detail, that it wasn't obviously related to the bullying and the physical harm that he died.
Yeah.
He could have died from something else. He might have died anyway, regardless of anything that had happened prior, on the stream. Because the verbal abuse and even strangulation, that could cause some problems. But anyway, so
yeah, I mean the stress coupled with the sleep deprivation, coupled with the pre-existing heart conditions, coupled with whatever substances could certainly have done a number.
Right.
But it's hard for, I'm sure it's hard for an investigator to say, it's murder in the first degree, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But, without getting into that, because we don't have the data and I'm not a medical examiner, I can talk about whether or not, or why someone would do this voluntarily, so to speak. And you were talking about how people in domestic violence, intimate partner violence relationships can feel trapped, and how the slippery slope or the progression of boundary crossings and harm and learned helplessness and being enmeshed or entangled with people that you just worry, like, well, what would they do to me if I drew a boundary? And maybe he did draw boundaries and they took action. And it can seem shocking from the outside because this is a rich celebrity in a sense, right? And he has power, he has money, and he might have even had his own studio. And presumably he doesn't live in the studio, so he could have just stayed home or bought his own apartment, his own safe house, and just hid there and got his own webcam and figured out a way to hide out from these guys. But it's never that simple. Any abused partner, people will say the same thing. It's like, well, why not you just, when he's at work, just pack up your shit and leave. Right. And there's so many different barriers to that. One is the learned helplessness, the breakdown psychologically, where you just literally believe that you're incompetent or you're worthless or you deserve it or you're too sensitive or this is inevitable. If it's not this person, there's so many different things. And those abuses can come from the abuser or even from your past, the way you were raised.
I mean, even of course, I'm not trying to compare this to actual couples abuse systems, but I experienced something like this where you might remember many, many, many years ago, I was caught in a job that I was really, really stressed by and unhappy by and feeling abused by, honestly. And I didn't leave. I didn't leave for a long time, years. And if you had asked me at the time, like, why? Like, I wouldn't have really been able to tell you a good reason. And in retrospect, I'm like, why did I just stay,
Well, I remember not asking that bluntly, but we did have conversations around the question, why not look for somewhere else or move laterally to another department or something. And you were saying, from my memory, that you didn't think that a better option was out there. Yeah. Like, bosses be bosses.
Right. I was sort of convincing myself that it sucked, but that I didn't have an option. Right. And that was not even me getting beat up or, choked or hit. It was work stress and work abuse, but still, even in that.
But it illuminates the practicality of what it's like to be in a relationship like that, because it's not irrational for you in that situation to make all the mental calculations and predictions about your options and say, there might not be a better option than this. Bosses, some of them are worse than this guy. Some of them might be better, maybe, but then maybe their coworker is mean or something. Right. And you just kind of get in this rut. And sometimes you just want to hold on to what you got. And so a lot of people in intimate partner violence relationships, what they're trying to hold on to is stability. They're trying to hold on to maybe financial stability or the attachment, the love. There's love and attachment in those relationships as well, warmth or some kind of attachment, fulfillment. Right. And so for him, do you know the progression of it? How long over time?
Apparently, this kind of stuff started as early as December of 24. So, 9 months ago. Basically.
Okay. So sounds like it was a quick ramp up of the kind of physical abuse that was happening.
It seems that way. Yeah.
And, maybe maybe JP, the victim, the deceased, maybe he has a history that could have made him susceptible to this. But I'll tell you, as someone that myself does not have a history of anything like this, I have been in an intimate partner violence relationship. And I can tell you that even with all my power and all my privilege, it's nothing compared to what a victimizer, what an abusive person can terrify you into. So even with all my intellectual abilities and my privilege and my connections and my options and my knowledge, having treated intimate partner violence perpetrators myself, your number comes up or you get in the crosshairs or you find yourself in a situation like all the things will happen. Now, I got out of it a lot faster than I think other people would have because of all those, but there was an extended period of time where people from the outside were saying, why are you still entertaining this person? Why aren't you drawing boundaries? And I still look back and say, I was trying to extract myself in the safest way possible and to draw firm boundaries I thought might actually jeopardize the long-term picture. But that could just be me with this internalized notion of you deserve it, or this is your lot in life. I don't know. I to this day I can't know. I can't have experimented with an A/B scenario, and so I think there's a chance that having stayed in it longer than people outside of me were wishing, I think I did play it right because in the end it did, I think, work out. I mean, I literally thought someone would put a bullet in my head. You know?
My God.
I thought, I told people around me that if I end up being murdered or if there's a mysterious death circumstance for myself, 99% chance it was this person.
Oh my God.
Or they hired someone. I mean, literally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those kinds, and that person had never threatened me.
Right.
It was just that they were so unhinged, as the kids will say. You just, your mind goes wild with like, well, what else are they fucking capable of?
Sure.
If they're capable of X, Y, and Z, and they're that emotional, and they're that crazy, and they're that focused, and they're that determined, and they've already demonstrated that they're willing to throw away all sorts of things for themselves in the effort of controlling me and staying connected to me. God fucking knows. Yeah. And I'm, I'm a fairly rational person. I'm not like, I'm not like thinking about, I'm not allowing Hollywood movies like Fatal Attraction to like infect my predictions of the future. I even then I was, because you just, anyway. So for JP, it sounds like he got himself in a situation like that, even though from the outside you could look at it and say, why didn't he draw a boundary? And
it's quite possible that it starts off with him sort of like, well, yeah, I guess that will gain a lot of views. Like we could try that or something. But then it escalates. They don't actually respect him because clearly they didn't really give a shit about him. And then it gets worse. Then he agrees to this 300-hour marathon session. And then he starts literally feeling trapped. And whether or not that was literally true, like if he had actually been like, I'm done, I'm running out this door, whether or not they would have forced them physically to stay. And someone that saw that, hopefully you didn't watch the whole thing, but if someone knows, comment. But I don't know if that tried to happen, like if he tried to run away and they like forced him back in. I didn't see anything about that. But it's irrelevant because if he really felt at that moment, especially if he's sleep deprived, probably his body was feeling terrible.
Yeah, I forgot about that detail.
Yeah.
That it was a 300. So by context, it sounds like they kept him up for 300 hours.
Well,
they had rotate because like the bullies didn't stay up for 300 hours.
And I don't know if maybe he did get small bursts of sleep.
But still,
I have no idea. But you're sleep deprived to the end.
Right. And people don't understand that sleep deprivation can kill you.
Yeah, definitely. So
yeah, and it can compromise your cognitive abilities pretty quickly. Yeah. Including your ability to think straight and judge things. Yeah. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so that could be argued as a cause, right? But yeah, so the other thing that I've learned over the years, having covered reality TV so intensely over the past 5 years, and having done off-mic interviews or conversations with cast members, I can tell you that something that I don't hear people talking about very much is that people and their identities, especially if they didn't really have one to begin with because of early childhood issues, can become that of the camera watching them. I won't say who, but one of the cast members that I followed a lot over the years, that I would watch them on reality TV, I had heard and also talked to them behind the scenes and got to know kind of the way they were away from the camera, and concluded, and it's very tentative because I wasn't conducting a thorough assessment of personality because it's all just conversations and piecing things together. But the way it sounded, and I think this is a common thing for people, it's just a matter of degree, really, is that their self becomes the way the audience sees them. And the audience, there's a mediating controller in between the audience and the cast member, which is the show or the editors, right? So it's not now if you're live streaming and you're by yourself, then you have more control over how the audience sees you. But like right now, you and I, we're on microphone. We know that people are listening, right? Even though it's not right now, but we know later. You and I, if the microphones aren't in front of us, we don't talk like this. It's a mode we go into.
Right. My voice is very different normally.
Normally, the two of us just stare at each other because we don't have anything to say.
We meditate together.
But you put a microphone in front of us, and we're like, "Oh, people are listening. I better have a personality." Just joking. The one thing I do say is that when it's the two of us, generally speaking, although today before the microphone it was completely different. You usually talk a lot. I usually don't talk a lot. I certainly can talk a lot.
This is true.
but you're a much bigger personality than I am. And there are times when I literally will just drift into the background and you and other people will take up a lot of space with, which is fine. That's why I love you.
But your point is made that when we are here, we are on a certain mode,
right?
Let alone if it's a live stream.
Right. So imagine if you cobble together a personality, if you will, or a mode, and you get rewarded and you feel a connection and you feel like this is who I am. And off mic or off camera, you don't know who you are.
Right.
You don't know what to do with yourself. You're not in connection with your needs. Then you become the product of the system that is the audience and maybe the editors.
Right.
But on a live stream, JP could have, even before these bullies showed up, he could have become fulfilled, and his identity was wrapped up. And I think a lot of these live streamers can be like this because they live stream all the time. Like, I can't imagine. Well, it's funny because we're coming up on our 17th anniversary and we're live streaming all day. Although I think this episode might come out after our 17th. Oh. I think this might be like the Monday after our 17th. But anyway, but we do that once a year, and it's exhausting.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to do. Some people do that every day.
Right.
So my point is that the question of consent, or why would someone do this voluntarily? Well, if your fellow streamers are into it, and side note on that, they sound sadistic. They sound like they have it. Because no matter how much money or attention you and I receive, we would never even think about doing something like that.
No, I mean, the little bits I watched, I'm like, these guys seem like psychopaths. I don't understand what is going through their head.
Yeah. So now maybe they're not like extreme, but like the Stanford prison experiment, the guards had varying levels of sadism once they were given permission to do so. So maybe off mic, they're perfectly lovable, warm, safe people to be around, but they have a streak in them that when they're given permission, they lean into it, whereas you and I would never do something like that. Or at least we wouldn't go that far. Or not nearly that far. But so for him, he's like, and I don't know, I'm just speculating based on the little I know. Maybe he, for the first time, had a group of friends.
Sure.
Maybe he's like,
Actually, that's a good, important point you bring up, because one of the things they made fun of him was for not having girlfriends, for not having friends. So that's not a trivial point. It's like this was a rare grouping for him to be in, because he usually was pretty lonely.
Right. So who knows what his life was really like, but that could be a factor, a motivation to consent.
Yeah.
Right. And you'll see this on the playground as well. Right.
Because you have to imagine that I get involved somehow and I'm doing a live stream where I'm trying, and they're beating me up and insulting me or something. And you like, someone informs you, Kirk, have you seen this? There's no way you're not going to go try to like pull me out of that thing.
Right.
Because I have other friends that might pay attention, family and friends that might be like, whoa, what the hell?
Well, and you don't need those guys for fulfillment. Right. And make no joke about it, or make no mistake about it. That's what I mean to say.
Make no joke about it.
Rhaegar, is that friendships and attachments and relationships are deeply, we have a deep need for them.
Yeah.
So we might think, he didn't know these guys that well, but that could have been a factor. The audience is another factor that I was talking about earlier. I don't think I really drove that point home, that either I'm going to take a guess and say that pre-developmental prefrontal cortex boys were watching this,
Probably, yeah.
And sadistic, psychopathic people, which are more online.
Choke him longer, hit him harder.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So he is getting a lot of attention, money maybe, but it sounds like he was already doing okay money-wise. But the attention and the acceptance, I'm acceptable now, while being bullied, is a weird kind of paradox. And so as, the slippery slope starts to happen, he just starts to lean into it. And when he's away from it and he's texting his mom or talking to his mom, he is reaching out for help. And, the mom's powerless, because I'm sure she was saying, well, what are you doing? Like, get out of it. And he's like, I don't know how to get out of it.
Right.
And he doesn't have anyone in his circle, which most people don't, that can help him extract himself. Because so often what happens for abuse victims is that, of course, when you talk to people that are supportive, they'll say, well, draw a boundary, get out, don't show up, don't go home, pack up a bag and leave, don't go on Kick with these guys, stop answering their phone calls. That actually, if that's all that you give to a victim, it's so overwhelming to them and might actually be practically impossible or unsafe for them to do that, given what they have been threatened or what they imagine would happen.
Jeez.
That what'll happen is the victim will say, so I can do A or B. I can go back to the abusive person, or I can take this drastic action that is overwhelming or actually unsafe for me. So what they need is a C, which almost no one provides, but trained advocates and therapists will provide, like myself, will say, here's A, here's B, here's C, though, which is if you want to draw a boundary, but you and I, let's talk as often as possible and just check in with me. And I'm not going to pressure you to do anything, because that's another thing, the pressure and the judgments and the shame. And so I'm not going to pressure you. I don't have any expectations, but let's keep this communication line open. And I'll just tell you, when I hear what you're saying, it sounds like you are an abuse victim. But I also know that it takes a long time to extract yourself, and there's some practical matters. But let's just keep this line open, and then I can. They have a safe place that they can talk without being pressured. Because you imagine the mom saying, "What are you doing?" And then eventually he stops contacting his mom. Not because mom's a jerk face, but because mom doesn't know how to talk to an abuse victim.
It's all or nothing in their brain, right? Yeah.
Right. There's also a level of cultification that he could have been involved in, right? Who knows what kind of psychological abuse he might have been going through, where it's hard to reach the victim.
That's right.
On a rational level.
Well, actually, and on a physical level, because the truth is that they're in the middle of a live stream. They might take his phone away, and then no one can contact him, right? No, it's true. And we've seen countless examples over the years where we analyze these cults.
Right.
And the frustration that relatives have trying to extract the...
Right. Yeah. So you can kind of think of this, and this isn't the first time it's happened, of a cult where you have the leaders and you have the audience and you have the message and you have the brainwashing and the slippery slope of because if you just watch one of these streams, you're just like, what in the hell are these people doing? But if you see the progression and the other streamers that have already done this, because there's a whole industry of these kinds of streamers, and these guys are just doing it the next step, because these aren't the only guys on Kick that are bullying one of their people, what I mean? And just as a side note, I've never liked this kind of content. And there are two podcasts or comedy troupes that do this. One is Ricky Gervais. Did you ever listen to his podcast. I think it was a podcast. It was him and Steve Merchant, which I love. I love Ricky Gervais.
And then they make fun of the third guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't because I didn't like it for the same reason.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely sadistic,
Yeah.
one. Two, Ricky Gervais's laughs is one of the most annoying laughs I've ever heard in my life. It's so forced, and it seems so obviously staged. I mean, this third guy, the way I think
if it's real, it's abuse.
Right.
If not, it's staged and it's boring.
it's boring, right?
Yeah.
The other, and I don't think they do it all the time, but Jason Bateman,
Justine,
J. Period Bateman and Will Arnett. And
it's Jason, right? Because his sister's Justine.
It wouldn't be Justin. Yeah. Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and the guy from Will and Grace. I can't remember his name. The guy from Will and Grace is the bullied guy.
Oh, okay.
They're always making fun of him. I don't think they go as far as the Ricky Gervais thing, but that was another example of just like I can't listen to just like ongoing hazing of a member. It's just not funny to me. It seems staged. It seems mean.
They did that on Howard Stern a lot. You know,
Really?
they had a lot of more than one person that they
Right.
they bullied.
So what JP and these other guys are doing are just doing the kick version, which is more physical maybe and more in that direction. And so this isn't the first time. It's not the first time that a victim has volunteered, so to speak, right? But you just wonder.
Yeah. And people were comparing it to Black Mirror, one of the episodes we reviewed.
Exactly. The one where
it's a social
Irish
network like that. Yeah, and the Irish guy is going in to make money because he's desperate.
Right.
And the more he abuses himself in that case.
But the difference is that JP already presumably had a lot of money.
Yeah, I know.
So he didn't need it.
Yeah, it's some deep, deep, deep wounds that were not being.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a break. We get back. Another email. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. Let's do an OPP, Berto.
OPP.
These patrons are upper tier. So these are at the mug level and higher. Ooh. And so I thought I would just read the oldest or the longest, not the oldest, but the patrons who have been around the longest. Why is it hard for me to...
The patrons that were longest at a time.
Yeah. So we have good old Liz de Landshear.
Liz de Landshear.
I think we've met Liz. I'm not quite sure, but Liz is an upper tier patron.
Whoa.
And has been a patron for 10 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a lot of potatoes.
Yeah. We got Beth. I'm wondering if Beth is the one that we met. I'm not sure. Beth is from God Knows Where. Noah from God Knows Where from 2016. Ed, good old Ed.
Ooh.
Ed Weil. He was, I believe, like fan of the year one time.
Oh my God.
Didn't we send him a mug or something? He's a therapist. And then my sister, of course.
Nice.
Who is nice enough to do that.
Ah, so he has a sister.
Akemi, who I believe I met in person from 2017. Kimber from God Knows Where. Jill from Falmouth, Maine. So thank you, Jill. Serenity, who we met from Modesto, California.
Serenity now.
Yeah, you met Serenity as well. Lemon Jelly from 2018. Oh. So these people have been patrons for since. Yeah, and Sally from Olympia, Washington.
Wow.
Thank you so much for not only being a patron, but being an upper tier patron and being a patron since 2015 to 2019.
So I got to tell you my little story the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I sent you a photo.
Right.
You're like, what? What's this? So basically, I went to a farmer's market, and I intended to buy a few things. Usually they have some yummy things there. So I was going around. I bought some hummus, some special pita to go with the hummus. I bought a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then I come across a booth that has the most colorful, beautiful chocolates. And it's called Spiel, which I didn't know in German means play. Like Glockenspiel is.
Or like, what's your spiel, right?
What's your spiel?
Like,
but it means play.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a play on chocolate. And it's these beautiful chocolates with all these intricate patterns and designs. And so I got interested and I went and I picked out a few and I bought them. And as I'm paying, the person selling them says, "Can I ask you a weird question?" I'm like, "Sure." are you on a podcast? And I go, yes. But the funny thing is, she recognized my voice because she never watches our videos.
Yeah.
So it turns out, her name's Angie, and she makes chocolates while she listens to the podcast. And she's been doing it for a while now. So long enough to recognize our voices just by hearing me.
Did she say you looked the way she thought you would look?
She didn't comment on that. She did make a face of aversion, and she almost threw up a little bit in her mouth.
Right.
But other than that, she thought I was very cute.
Yeah. That happened to me once. I was at a bar and talking with my friends, and some people walked past our table, and then this woman came back and said, "Are you Dr. Kirk Hanna?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, I didn't know what you looked like, but I could tell by your voice. And I don't know about you, but I listen to a lot of podcasts,
right,
and I can totally relate.
Sure, of course.
If I never knew what Ira Glass looked like, but I heard him having a casual conversation in public,
right,
I would instantly, because there's some, when you get to know a voice really, really well,
yeah,
then your brain just keys in on that, right. Like I'll listen to I listen to TBTL, a local podcast, just these two guys. My wife, when I listen with her at times, she can't tell the difference between the two guys, which is absolutely bizarre to me. But I've been listening to the podcast for 17 years.
So you've got it dialed in.
So I know exactly. I can't believe that she's like, oh, which one is that? And I'll be like, oh, that's Luke. And because to me, they sound very, very different.
Huh.
And so it's not that our voices are that distinctive. It's that with familiarity,
right,
your brain becomes very attuned to that very specific fingerprint that is that person's voice.
And if you hear it, and everyone's voice is pretty damn unique. So if you hear it, you're like, oh, I know that.
Yeah. It must have been a weird experience for her to just be like, wait, this guy's voice sounds like Umberto.
And I've been recognized before, but visually, so this was the first time where someone's like, I know your voice.
Yeah.
The other thing is I said, hey, I'll mention it on the podcast. It's like, oh, what if you don't like the chocolates? So, Angie, the chocolates were I'm kidding. They were amazing. No, literally delicious. In fact, I bought one that was 100% chocolate, 100% chocolate from Colombia.
Ooh.
And it was amazing.
Well, I thought 100% chocolate meant it doesn't taste good, right?
Well, you would think so, because it's bitter, right?
Yeah.
It's so good. Oh, I'll bring you some. I still have a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really into sweets, but...
Well, that one's not a sweet, so there.
Oh, right. Okay. Annual super long-term middle-tier patron Natasha from California.
Yay.
Who we met. She says, hi, Kirk and Berto. I hope you and everyone are having a Seattle summer. Mm-hmm. She just left Seattle, so she had a love-hate relation. Not a love-hate, but she thought Seattle had pros and cons.
Sure.
As I suppose it would be true anywhere. I was recently at a crowded event with my daughter, and I made a comment about following her to the bathroom out of worry that someone would take her.
Yeah.
So I know from context that Natasha is saying to her daughter. She's not just announcing this. She's, her daughter's going to the bathroom, and Natasha's like, oh, maybe I should follow you to the bathroom, make sure no one, takes you. And the daughter is 11 years old. The daughter looked at me and laughed like I was being ridiculous. I realized in that moment that although we talk about the importance of bodily autonomy and her right to refuse touch and who her trusted adults are, etc., I haven't instilled the kind of fear that my mom had at that age. Meaning that Natasha's saying my mom really instilled a lot of fear of me being abducted when I was 11. Do you think it is important for kids to have a certain awareness of stranger danger? Just chiming in here, Berto, what do you think?
So I have a couple thoughts. One, I can certainly relate to that feeling of wanting to be there all the time and make sure nothing bad happens. I've discussed this before. I think partially, or maybe a large part might be because I suffered abuse when I was 5 and no one was there watching, right? So that might influence my fear that could happen, right? So I can totally relate to that. The flip side is, I have a friend who, when they were young, her mother was very, very paranoid because her mother had had an incident when she was young that had been horrible. And so she was very, very protective, and it drove this person kind of nuts. And then but it sort of had a weird counter effect because this person's never really worried about anything. And if it's the kind of person who's like, oh yeah, I'll walk home like late at night in downtown and I'm fine.
Meaning that they recognized it was ridiculous or they concluded, whether it was right or not, that their mother's paranoia was paranoia, and they swung the other direction of just like, there is no danger.
Right. And even if they might logically agree with you that, okay, I could see how there's some danger, I still don't care. It's like that thing. And so it's funny because in my case, from my own experience, similar to their mom, actually, the mom of my friend I'm talking about, I became more paranoid. But it's possible, and I don't know if I've done that, hopefully I haven't done this but it's possible that I could make my daughters less worried than they might want to be. Like there's some happy medium somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many things I can say because there's so many elements to this that aren't usually discussed. Like in another scenario, a child of a paranoid parent could be even more paranoid.
Right.
So it's not always the case that the child will rebel and overcompensate the other direction. It's also quite possible that your friend that had the paranoid mom internally has a lot of fears that they're fighting against, and they're just consciously identifying with the side of them that's rebelling against their mom. Because you can imagine when they were 16 and their mom was like, you can't leave the house. And they're just like, I just want to go to this birthday party. And so they have this very conscious identification with, fuck you, mom. The world isn't as dangerous as you think it is. And they're denying not only just rational conclusions of danger in the world, but also the internalization of their mom's paranoia from when they were 0 to 10 anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right. So what I'll say to this is that my general advice, and I've worked with a lot of parents on this issue, is that it's case by case. And you as a parent have to wrestle, as you have, Berto, with
bad guys, wrestle the bad guys.
Well, internally, the fears and the traumas and the paranoias. How do you have balance, right? You can't approach a child having not done that work because it'll fuck things up. There's that. The other is that every kid's different. Some kids are prone to, you have 2 daughters.
Right, and they're very different.
They're very different. I would say they both have your anxiety gene, but it manifests very differently. Ways, and they both have an internal defense against it that is different. One is more subtle, and the other is just more like the pendulum swings a lot. You know what I mean? and so it's case by case. So with one kid, you could do nothing, and the kid will just pick up from context around them that the world has dangers, and they don't need to be told. Another kid, you say anything to them, and they'll be staring into the darkness while they're trying to fall asleep at night, worrying about things. My wife, Stacy, tells me that they were talking about fire safety and stuff, and because in school or there'll be talk about, do you have an exit?
Right.
And, if you're on a second floor, do you have a ladder or something, or and do you have a fire an extinguisher? And she had learned that on the news or something that they were practicing, the local fire department in Bellevue were using a house to practice, and they were lighting it on fire.
Oh no!
And so Stacy, in her isolation, while she would stare into the darkness at night, was terrified that the fire department was going to choose her house on accident.
That's horrible.
And of all the kids that were exposed to that data, I'm sure only a small percentage, but a percentage had that thought. So every kid's different. Kids latch on. The key is that you're involved in the child's anxiety, that you are attuned, attunement, that you, just generally speaking, are attuned, especially when they're afraid. and that they feel that they can talk with you about it. Because, if Stacy felt like she could just tell her parents, by the way, I've been staring into the darkness at night worrying that the fire department's, they would instantly, oh, okay, well, let's walk through this. Thanks for telling me. The fire department has a procedure before they light a house on fire. One, they don't tend to make those mistakes. Two, they do a full walkthrough, because, what if someone was squatting in the house or an animal got in there? They vet it thoroughly with multiple checks, and then they quarantine the house, make sure no one wanders in.
As long as there's no more than 2 or 3 people still left.
Some kind of, or let's go to the fire department. You can talk or you can talk to them, or just something.
And maybe that would have been cute. Here, we've written our address, and she's going to hand it to you to make sure that this
no fly zone. And so attunement, specifically with fear, and when you are alerted, you respond in a way that helps them, right? So with some kids, like with Natasha, with your daughter, you've done a lot of work about, as you say, bodily autonomy, her right to refuse touch, who her trusted adults are. So that sounds like a lot of coaching and age-appropriate talk. That's always a thing. But again, kid by kid. So the larger point I want to say is that there's a lot of advice that you'll hear online or among parents. And but again, every kid's different.
Right.
And every parent is different in how they deliver it. And every parent is different in how worried they are about this kind of thing. This needs to be addressed because we've talked about that before, more specifically around when they're alone with their friends or they're at a sleepover, that you have instilled in them the notions that they do have bodily autonomy, that they should tell you, that they can say no, that kind of stuff. Because you have to trust that they can protect themselves, because you're not going to be there all the time. So, but this is kind of different because it's more of the stranger danger thing. And you also have to understand that for the average parent, you are probably going to be biased towards more paranoia than otherwise because of the way the news cycle is.
Right.
Like the stranger danger risk is much lower now than it was when we were kids.
But it seems the opposite.
But it feels the opposite. And if you ask the average parent, and it depends on the jurisdiction, blah, 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 and it's hard to know because it's not like every incident is logged in some database somewhere. But generally speaking, these kinds of crimes are have a lower prevalence today for a variety of reasons than before. And so, but if you ask people, it's like, oh, when we were kids, we could walk to the store and there was no risk of being abducted. And the thing is, there was.
There was, yeah.
Yeah, but there were, the news cycle was news at 6, and they might not even talk about this because it was too salacious or something, too disturbing. And also, parents had a lot of kids, and so although they loved all their kids, it wasn't as much of a tragedy, or I mean, I'm making a joke, but they were just anyway. Point is that a case by case basis, and so for you, Natasha, do you think it's important for kids to have certain awareness of stranger danger? Yes, within reason, but it depends on the context, right? And age appropriateness. For age 11, I would say that. If you're, where were you? You were in public. Let's see.
It sounded like it was a crowded
event. Yeah, like Disneyland or something.
And that is, and especially if it's not Disneyland, if it's outside Disneyland, it's in a public place where, a car could get away easily, that kind of thing. Right. Then, I mean, those are the places where you need to be mostly on your guard, right? But to your point, there is a balance.
Right. Well, so the thing that I started saying and didn't finish saying was that the thing that often isn't talked about is the dynamic between parent and child, which is playing out between Natasha and her daughter. Mm-hmm. Natasha says, should I follow you to the bathroom so that you won't get abducted? The daughter laughed and looked at the mom as if the mom was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So this isn't just about, did I make a mistake not instilling awareness in her? There's some emotional thing happening. She's 11.
Right.
She'll be 12 soon. She'll be 13 soon. She'll be 14 soon. Then the shit is just increasingly hitting the fan up until she hits 14. And as a part of that, it's, Mom, you're ridiculous. Just get used to everything you do, even if it's rational.
Well, like, case in point, the other day I went to drop my 14-year-old off at practice. And the thing is that there was... I wanted to meet the coach. I wanted to just see. And also, it turns out that there was some paperwork that was still not finished or whatever. Oh, my gosh. But she did not want me to walk up with her at all. And I could just tell she was so mortified and stuff. So it's stuff like that. And it was a rational reason I had. I wasn't like trying to embarrass her or something, but it was just a rational. But she wanted to draw a boundary.
Right. So it could just be that.
Yeah.
And all those things need to be taken into account. Yeah. If you override that and force yourself on her as she's walking to the bathroom and she's not liking it, obviously that's going to cause some friction, but it could start associating your intent on instilling in her a rational understanding of danger in the world. It could complicate that and cause her to rebel or hate you or become too paranoid or something. And so in the midst of all of this talk with kids and guidance, the emotional vibe and the development of the child and where they are in general in terms of accepting your guidance, given the context, right? If you were at home and they were, I don't know, walking to the store and back where there's not going to be a lot of kids, maybe they'll be more susceptible to it. In this scenario, you're in a crowded place. There's probably other 11-year-olds,
right,
and they're probably concerned about that. Or they don't want to be embarrassed, treated like a child as you're holding their hand, walking them into the stall of the bathroom. Who knows what's happening. So all of that has to be taken into account, and most parents can intuit those situations, right? But yeah, generally speaking, having a sit down, and it has to be repeated, really, and again, case by case, and you're reading the child. So you want, basically what you want them to understand is that there are dangers in the world and there are ways to protect yourself and there are ways to act if something happens. What you don't want them to be is like Stacy staring into the darkness, worrying about it though. Right. So you have to follow up and you have to be attuned to it. It could become so severe with some anxious kids that you literally take the lesser of two evils and you actually don't have that conversation with the kid because they're going to soak it up too much. And the risk of anxiety and the horror of the mind soul crushing anxiety is much more front and center than any kind of, let's just say, mild risk of being abducted on the way to the bathroom.
Sure.
Let's go on with the rest of the email. I guess I'd always gone with the fact that kids are much more likely to be abused by someone they know. So I didn't feel the need to create this boogeyman fear for her. And she's already pretty shy anyway. Just chiming in, shyness doesn't have anything to do with victimization. I mean, it has to do with like how often they're in contact potentially, but sometimes being shy means you're more susceptible. Anyway, going on. I don't want her to go into the world afraid, but I also don't want her to assume people are nice, which...
sorry, I think she might have meant that she's worried that since she perceives her to already be shy, that by saying, hey, stranger danger, that might make her more shy to talking to people.
Thanks. Okay. Natasha would have definitely set me straight on that. She was probably already...
She's like, oh my gosh, read the email.
Especially having to explain to my little girl that there are men, because this is often gendered, which is true, that there are men that want to harm her, see her as an object, and deeply don't care about how she feels. Yeah. I both need her to know and feel an unbridled anger at the... So this is an interesting sentence. I both need her to know and feel an unbridled anger at the way girls are silenced and dimmed by the knowledge that so much of the world views them as unworthy of respect. Berto, what do you think about that? That's
words? A strong statement. So that reveals a system in her mind, because it's not just like the pragmatic, like, hey, I just need to make sure you're safe going to the bathroom, right? There's this bigger philosophy at stake. Like, you need to understand something about the world, something fundamental, which, I mean, I can understand. You know, this actually broke my heart when my first daughter was little, because I always presented to her, and we presented to her, such a wonderful view of the world, right? And she watched her little, you know, cartoons, and everything seems so nice and welcoming, and nanas are welcoming. And I remember when she started realizing, because of whatever, maybe she overheard something on the news, or maybe just started realizing that, wait, why is that happening? And it broke my heart to see, like, oh, wow, she's going to be exposed to the fact that actually the world isn't a Disney movie, or, you know, not even a Disney movie, like, because Disney movies have bad things that happen. The world has this ugliness to it.
Yeah, particularly for girls.
Yeah.
And particularly as they develop.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, it is important to be aware of it. Because if you actually grow up literally thinking, you know, I had this discussion with my therapist, actually, that many, many years ago, you might remember this, I was in a storage unit, and there was a guy there, seemed like an army guy or something. And at one point, and I was there, and I was with my wife, and we were moving stuff. And apparently I was, surprise, surprise, being loud. So this guy at one point says, because I'm walking back, and he says to me, "Hey, you're being loud, and I'm hearing all your conversations."
How old were you?
Personal stuff. This might have been like 10 years ago or something.
Oh, okay. Not a kid.
Not a kid, no.
Yeah.
And so I got upset. So I'm like, what? So I start walking up to him. But he, I guess being trained or what, he just like stands his ground and draws a virtual line, says like, "Cross that line," or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember.
And I'm like, okay, I don't want to die right now. So he probably has a gun anyways. And even if he doesn't, I think he's just going to like choke me to death or something. So I'm like, well, you just, you know, I said whatever, and then I backed off. But in my mind, I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I talked to my therapist about it. And what we discussed was that I tend to not, especially back then and stuff, I tend to not pay enough attention to the context around me, and that I actually give the benefit of the doubt to the world, that the world's just going to be great, right? And as a result, multiple times in my history, I had gotten myself into very dangerous situations because of that, like, naive assumption or whatever. But I don't even think it's a naive assumption. I think it's always been a hopeful desire. Like, I want the world to be the kind of place where that doesn't happen. But so to drive back, it is important to be aware that as much as we want to, there are actually dangers, and there are not everyone has our best interest in mind, blah, 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 blah. So it's as simple as like, look, should you really just trust that you can cross the street at any time without looking both ways? Well, no. And then you can pull back from there and be like, okay, well, that one's obvious because the cars don't know you're going to cross and blah, blah, blah. But then there are other ones like, well, should you always trust that if you're a little 11-year-old in a big crowded place and you go everywhere, that you're always going to be safe? No. But to your point, where do you draw that line of worry versus independence? That's harder, you know? And especially, like you said, it varies by personality and by all these things. Yeah. I would just say that I like her. What I'm hearing from her is this idea of like, hey, I want to let my child know that that she's entering a world, now she's getting a little older, she's entering a world that has some built-in systems that are actually working against her. And that is important to understand, even if it is heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing from the email as well, that Natasha is seeing the writing on the wall and saying, you know, she's going to be 12, she's going to be 13, puberty, and even on the best of circumstances, that particularly for girls, because of the way the female body develops, you know, for us guys, a lot of the puberty markers were behind clothes, you know,
right?
Pubic hair or, you know, genital kind of changes. But for girls, not all the time, but, you know, the body starts to look like an adult. And so there's a lot more noticeable, but also because of misogyny and the sexualization of kids and of girls and of sexism and, all that. And I guess horniness of people and the messages that boys are told by Andrew Tate that, you don't want to be a cuck. You don't want to be a beta. You got to be an alpha. You got to
Sigma now.
Oh, Sigma. You've got to go after the trim in the world is
gotta have Riz, gotta have Sigma.
And so
can't be skibbity.
Yeah. So it's rough, and instilling in your kid a knowledge of that and an anger, I think, is important. But you're paradoxically entering into a time where she's more increasingly going to look at you as though you're ridiculous. Yeah. So you have to pick your battles, and you have to gauge your influence and guide and not control, and suggest and not demand. And I can't tell you how many times I would have those conversations with parents, that line between, because when a kid is 10 or 9, you can demand. When they start to transition, though, into teenage life, for most kids, not all, those days are over. Demands just make it worse. So how do you guide? How do you try to put up the bumpers when you go bowling, so they don't hit a gutter ball, just put it, just try to get it down the lane. You get to throw it down the lane, and maybe you don't need the bumpers, but let's put some bumpers around there. So that
training wheels. Yes.
Yeah. Going on with the email here. Lately, a lot more older men have been coming up to us and finding some reason to talk about her, and I have this swelling hatred for all of them. Like, I just want them to get the fuck away from her, and I have various fantasies of ways in which I can protect her from them. I suppose I could talk with my therapist about this, but I'd also like to hear your thoughts. Thanks for reading this, Natasha. Yeah, I agree. If I were you, Natasha, I would have pretty elaborate fantasies about ripping these guys' fucking heads off, or cutting off their dicks or something. Like, get the fuck away from my daughter, you fucking creeps. And, this is another thing that being a podcaster, or being a human being, being a clinician, being an academic, there are these moments in which I realize there was the before me and the after me. I had this with trauma. I don't know exactly when it was, but at some point I figured out that everything that or most of what I knew about trauma treatment, I was wrong about.
Okay.
And I've talked about this in the podcast before. And it's eerie, and it's not a good feeling to realize, I now know that I have been wrong this whole time. What the fuck else am I wrong about?
Right.
And am I right now? Maybe I'm not right. Maybe there's more right to be found. Well, one of those inflection points was on the air with you when we reviewed last year that study in Australia that anonymously surveyed like thousands of men in Australia and they asked various different questions from various different angles about if they were attracted to children or teenagers.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, and it was a very elegant design because it wasn't a question of, are you a pedophile? They never talked.
Right.
They never used that word. It was, if you could get away with it, would you have a sexual encounter? Or another question, have you had a sexual encounter? Or do you fantasize about? And then they would delineate by age group, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, that kind of thing. And the general conclusion based on all the data is about 9 to 10% of men of the sample, which was a large sample of Australian men, had or wanted to have sexual or fantasized about sexual contact with minors.
That is a lot of people.
Yeah. Now, we can talk about age of consent for like 17-year-olds, but the findings was
well into the youth.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I came across this study, I actually wanted to talk about it with you as a jumping off point, but also I wanted to criticize it because that just cannot be.
Yeah.
We just don't have that many pedophiles. There's not that many offenders. I don't know people that are like. Now, another angle that they came at was, are you also attracted to adult women? And a lot of them were. So it wasn't solely being attracted to children, right? And so as we were talking about it, and I reflected on it later, and after hearing a lot of stories and sort of consolidating all the data that I've absorbed as a clinician, as a human, as a follower of the news or whatever, it crystallized to me, and I had that inflection point of that study is actually accurate.
Yeah.
It and because I was fighting against the method. I remember.
Right.
And now maybe it's not 10%, maybe it's 7%, but it's way
still a lot of people,
way more people, men in particular, but a lot of women too. But in general, this is of the people that want to have sex with minors, I don't know, it's probably like 70, 80% of them would identify as male. And so that realization to me was mind-blowing. And so because one of the things that I hated was that as someone that is not like that, I don't like being pigeonholed as a guy at risk of doing something like that. And I would frequently say, not to defend myself solely, but to defend all the non-perpetrators out there, that you don't have to assume. Now, until proven otherwise, it's better to be, if you're walking down an alley and you and your daughter are, and the guy comes, you're going to be like, well, there's a 1% chance that he's a pedophile or but you don't want to take that chance because what if, right? Yeah. So I get that. But if, for example, you're dating someone and you like him and you're just like assuming that he's going to sexually assault your daughter, that's taking it too far, or just labeling someone like, I don't know who you are, but you like him, and you're just like, you could
be one of the 8%,
right? Yeah. Or well, back then, the impression I got was that people thought that like 50% of guys are capable of it, or maybe all men are capable of it, but the ones that don't do it are just in control of their impulses more. You know what I mean?
Right. It's kind of, that's sort of the, it's the extreme religious rights assumption sometimes about homosexuality. Like, well, you just got to choose not to, or you got to control yourself or whatever. Right. Yeah. And so like the flip of that is basically, well, we all want to go and abuse little kids, but we're like meditating constantly so that we don't.
Yeah.
But that's luckily not the reality.
I think Chris Rock might have had a routine that was don't quote me on this, was basically like all men are rapists, but most men just don't act on it, or it was some kind of like that. I can't remember, or not rapists, but that if we could get away with, I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. Sure. Or maybe cheating. Maybe it was just that. But I guess it's a similar kind of thing. But anyway, point is that if I read this email a couple of years ago, Natasha, I would have had a similar kind of take, but a little bit more like, well, I don't think you have to instill that much stranger danger into your child. But after learning this, and again, even if we do say 10%, a good portion of them, according to the data, have never acted on it. Right. They know better than to act on it, but they want to. Right. Or they think about it. Or if they could get away with it, then they would. And so, but it's still a lot larger percentage that are capable of it under the right circumstances. And that fact, or that likely fact in reality, has to be instilled in girls. Yeah. And how do you do that, right? How do you tell them this without making them paranoid, without implicating all men? Hashtag not all men.
Well, look, quite honestly, if I had a boy or boys, one thing I would educate them about, even though the percentages are small, is to watch out for teachers. Like that's another thing I do. So it's sort of like an example of like, well, even
what does that have to do with boys?
Oh, I'm saying, like all the stories of female teacher,
Mary Kay Letourneau, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. The percentages are low, right? Is it likely that my boys are going to run into that? No. But is it something I might want to give them a tool to be like, hey, here are the boundaries you should expect to have with your
Would you
teachers.
tell your daughters this too?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like the reason I was giving the boys example is because you could look at that and be like, dude, I know that it's in the news, but the percentages are really low. So why do you even bother? But I'm like, why not give them some? And actually, it's not even about like, be scared. Some of your teachers might do this. It's more about, I had just come up to it. It was, here are the boundaries you should expect to have with people. It's kind of like when you tell kids, here are your bathing suit areas. Those are for you. Those aren't for other people, right? It's similar to that. Like, here's the boundaries you expect. A teacher shouldn't be helping you stretch for your cross-country practice, which happened to me. When I was in high school, I had this male teacher, and I told him I was sore, and he took me in the back to help me stretch. Lifted my legs, didn't touch anything, but was helping me stretch.
So
Full
he
on.
could have done it in front of everyone else, but chose to do it behind closed
It was
doors.
after class, yeah. It was after class, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, that's definitely putting himself and me in a very inappropriate boundary crossing situation. He could have told me how to do the exercises. He didn't have to like show me and grab me, right? Okay. So I didn't know. No one had told me anything about boundaries. So I didn't have to be told, watch out, your teacher might grab you and try to stretch you and do more. I didn't have to be told that.
Yeah, I mean, even if your teacher wasn't up to anything creepy, the larger problem, and it's getting better, but it's still pretty bad, is that there should be this immediate red flag that goes up for the child and an immediate protocol that they have been instilled in them that they can depend on to,
Right.
a child should in a very automatic way say something like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I'm not saying anything about you, but
Can you
would,
just show me the? Can you just show me?
or even just like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I just don't feel comfortable.
Right.
So, and then the teacher would be like, oh, well, okay, no worries, but you had never had that. And so many kids have never had that. Natasha has done the work and, helped her child and is running into a nuance there and is wondering if she should have given more stranger danger.
And it's similar to why, though the monsters, I forget the guy's name, the gymnastics doctors.
Larry Nassar.
Yeah, because apparently he's not the only one, but definitely him. Where it's like they prey on the ignorance, in this case of both parents and certainly the gymnast.
Yeah, and not only the ignorance, but the awkward, silence-inducing awkwardness that we all have.
Yeah.
And
the appeal to authority. I'm a doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I'm a
I think,
teacher.
but I want to emphasize this: predators either know or inadvertently benefit from the way that we humans in general, under awkwardness, will be silent.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is awkward. I'll just freeze. I'll just wait for this to pass.
Lumping slap.
Huh? Oh, that was awkward, so I'm being silent.
Yeah.
But I'm not being silent. I don't feel comfortable with this, Berto. Let's take a break. We get back. One more final short email. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. Let's do another OPP, Berto.
OPP.
So we left off with Sally from Olympia, who has been an upper tier patron since 2019. We also have Taylor from God knows where, from upper tier patron since 2019.
Wow.
We have Melanie from God knows where since 2019. Junie Desiree
Oh, Junie.
since 2019. She has her channel, Junie
Yes.
Desiree, where she is.
Is it Desiree or is it Desiree?
Oh, I don't know.
Desiree?
A fellow Asian sister from Australia. And she has a YouTube channel, and the topic sentence is that she shows how to make journals, that you can,
Amazing.
or
Fabulous.
scrapbooking kind of
Beautiful
stuff.
scrapbooks.
But really, I would imagine that a lot of people watch because she has a very soothing voice, and she'll talk about things happening in her life and stuff. And
My daughter has tried to steal the journal she made for me.
that
multiple
Junie made
times.
for you?
Yeah.
Why?
Because she loves it, because she thinks it's so cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Marindiva, good old Marindiva from Pennsylvania, has been a upper tier patron since 2019. Her real name is Miranda. Susie from God Knows Where since 2020.
Susie Q.
Samantha Renee since 2020.
Nice.
Seattle Trans and Non-Binary Choral Ensemble
Whoa.
is this guy's name. Or I guess their name, right? If it's I don't know how they identify, but they've been up to your page since 2020. Ethel's Insides. I don't remember this one. So this is because some people have their own Patreon, right? So I imagine that's what Seattle Trans and Non-Binary Choral Ensemble is. Let's actually check out their page. Let's see. How do I get to their page? I guess I can't just click on it, isn't it? Oh no, I can click on it. Okay, here we go. So, nope, still not their page. You would think I would just be able to click on their thing and get to their profile, but I don't know. This is live, so I'll get out of this. Ethel's Insides. God knows what that's about. What do you think that's about?
Ethel's Insides. It's maybe the inner emotions,
Oh, from 2020. My cousin, Heather, is up to your patron since 2020. Heather is a cousin of mine, but a very distant one that I found through
your family tree and stuff.
Right.
Oh,
yeah. And we share great-grandparents, I believe.
Wow.
Similar to Mandy, actually. Mandy and I share two sets of out of your 8 great-grandparents, Mandy and I. So that's like first cousins twice removed kind of thing. Anyway. And we also have Marissa from Albuquerque since 2020. So thank you, Marissa. Let's go on to another email. Kind of a short one. Super long-term anonymous middle-tier patron and YouTube member. She says, I've been thinking about it a lot recently and realized, oh, by the way, just the YouTube member thing before I forget. I have been making all these YouTube member exclusive videos in which I react to the TV show Couples Therapy. And for some of you patrons or listeners that don't watch my reality TV show stuff, you might like this stuff because it's very technical, right? Because I'm watching Couples Therapy and it provokes the kind of reactions from me that I don't often get to talk about when I'm reacting to reality TV show people yelling at each other. Anyway, I've been thinking about it a lot and there's been a pretty positive response to that, me watching it, and so there's a good chance I'll be watching that show for a number of months in the future. Anyway.
And it's called Couples Therapy.
Yeah, which I'm not a fan of because we don't call it families therapy or individuals therapy or groups therapy. We call it individual therapy. So it should be couple therapy, but for whatever reason, no one likes to say it without an S.
Well, what if you have multiple couples at the same time in your therapy?
Yeah, well, then it's group couples. Then I guess it would be couples therapy, like if you had multiple families. Anyway, but I have given in and started occasionally saying couples therapy, even though it really just doesn't fit with me. Anyway, I've been thinking about it a lot recently and realized I just don't know how to tell whether or not I want kids. On the one hand, I love kids. I have worked with them in the past, and I absolutely loved it. On the other hand, it'd be so nice to live child-free with vacations and et cetera. There are tons of other reasons for each that come to mind, but in the spirit of brevity, what do you think are some good questions to ask yourself to try to figure out whether or not it's the right path for you? Any advice to help me or others look deeper into it? Thanks so much. Love from Oregon. Berto, when you were at the precipice 14 years ago, how did you make that choice? Because, you like your freedom.
Yeah. In fact, so I went in cycles. Like when I was 20, I really, I was like, I want kids for sure. I want like 4 kids, I had names picked out and everything.
What were the names?
Mark Anthony, Christopher.
Why Mark Anthony?
Because I liked Mark Anthony from the Roman times.
Oh, okay.
And then Christopher, what was the middle?
Augustus?
Christopher John?
Christopher Augustus?
Yeah, and then there was Susie was one of them. And then there was another one that was like, I forget what the other one was. But anyways, I had 4 kids picked out, 2 girls, 2 boys. And I then got busy with, working and living. And then I did get more and more selfish with my time. And so I started feeling towards when I late 20s, I was like, I don't know if I want kids. Like, I don't know.
And to put it in context, you got married to your wife when you were 25? 23?
Yeah.
And you had been with her since you were 19 or something. So in your late 20s, you're married, and, pretty far.
And I'm like, I don't know. And also, to be honest, we started having marital troubles during that time frame. So I'm like, I don't know if I want any kids, Yeah. And then after couples therapy and individuals therapy and just, time and getting older, I finally was like, I definitely want to have kids. And I felt ready. I finally felt less like a kid myself and a little more like, okay, maybe I could be a parent, And then
how was your wife feeling about it?
Yeah, we were both in the same track. Basically, we finally got to the same point where we were like, okay, we're ready for this. And it was good that
but the debate in your mind, right? You're thinking,
right?
Was that ever a question?
Yes, definitely. And so I didn't explicitly have this advice for myself at the time, but if I could go back and I was like, hey, here's how you might want to decide these things. I guess the things I would consider would be, because parentheses, I had a lot of unrealistic notions of what I thought this was gonna be like, and meaning I thought, okay, first of all, I'm gonna homeschool my kids, and they're gonna I'm gonna teach them all these subjects super early, so they're basically geniuses. And so I had this whole thing planned out.
I mean, you have done some of that.
Yeah, but it was like somehow I was gonna have to be independently wealthy and have all this free time and all these machineries to train these little robots to be okay. So I obviously had to learn that, you have to make a lot of compromises in life. But the main thing is, I would say to myself, let's say I could go back, 16 years or something. I might go back and say, okay, number one, who are you doing this for? Right? Because part of it is that I honestly felt that I owed it to my family, meaning not my wife. I owed it to my dad and my grandparents and stuff to continue the line. Right? And so I felt some responsibility there. But it's an interesting question. Do you have that? How strong is that for you? And for me, it actually does matter, because I sort of, in my mind, I have this philosophy of if there's one thing I believe in, is that I should do things that tend towards creation and conservation. And having kids seems like one of them. Having too many kids, maybe not, but having maybe maintenance amounts of kids maybe seems okay.
What would you tell yourself if you had a time machine while you were trying to make this choice and there was a chance that a different universe you wouldn't choose kids? How would you convince yourself that it is the right choice for you?
Right. So I go back and I'm definitely decided I'm not going to have kids.
Yeah, in this universe.
Right. Yeah, so I'd say,
I guess this would be like the quantum leap.
Right.
Some anomaly happened and you have to go back in time.
What I would say is that, given the benefit of I know my own personality, so I would say, listen, let me tell you, for our personality, the kinds of things we enjoy, I've had some very, very, very irreplaceable, rewarding moments with my kids because of that. Because, I like, because you're me, because I'm you, we like all these geeky things and watching these programs and all this stuff. Guess what? I've gotten to show them all that stuff and share those experiences and blah, blah. So that's really cool. Also, I hold in dear regard those moments I had with my dad in New York, where he really gave me some important tools. And I've enjoyed trying to do those kinds of things and telling them about my failures so that they could, basically I would try to connect with myself from the perspective of the things I like, that I value, and how those have been supported or been enhanced by having the kids.
Yeah.
Rather than just simply saying kids is just so wonderful. And it's also, because in reality, it's fucking hard and it's difficult and it's mind bending. And
what would you inform on that level?
On that level,
what would you prepare yourself for?
So I would say two things. One, when your friend Eric tells you that it's going to change your life and it's going to change your life, as in it's going to get a lot harder and then you're going to not be able to do all the things you like doing, you're going to want to dismiss that as just him being elitist because he already has kids. It's not. It really changes your life. Your schedule gets thrown in the garbage and you kind of lose your autonomy. It really is. The second thing I'd be like, the first year.
Yeah, just side note on that. The times when I run into that aspect for you is when we would be playing video games late at night and bedtime would be upcoming or something. And it always just seemed like there was this negotiation with your wife and your kids. And it got awkward at times.
Yes. And that's after they were already not at the diaper stage, right?
Yeah. This is when the kids are, 7 to 10.
It would have been kind of non-negotiable earlier because it'd been like, oh, no, it's my turn. Like I have to, So I would have said that. I would also kind of caution like that first year is especially draining and to take care of myself and to like, learn how to meditate because you're not going to get too much sleep, that kind of thing. So yeah, I do that.
And another angle to this though is like I just had a family reunion last week and my niece and her husband have a newborn, beautiful baby, and they love to travel. And so they have made it a point that even though they have a little one, and it's a little easier when they're not mobile yet, but I suspect that even once the child is mobile, depending on how active they are, because some kids, once they learn how to run and walk, they are just constantly trying to get away from you in public and running out into traffic and shit. So sometimes it's not possible, but you can get those leashes, and they make them fun.
Harnesses.
They make them fun. They, they make them into like a teddy bear. It just looks like they're walking around with a teddy bear strapped to the back, but really it's a leash,
Electrified.
Yeah. I mean, do you think leashes are bad?
No. Yeah, I think they're useful.
Totally.
I never had one with my kids. I guess they hadn't come out yet, or maybe I didn't know.
Well, your kids aren't run out into traffic-y kind of kids.
That's true.
So there's that. Plus, when you're at like a crowded venue, it just feels better to know that, like you don't have to constantly be looking at them. You just know if I have a hold of this thing, or it's literally strapped to your belt, like they're not going anywhere. No one can snatch them up, or they're not going to fall down a thing. Anyway, point is,
I want at least the digital leash where I have like something in my pants. You know how when you get at the restaurants you get the little buzzer. I want that in my pants for multiple reasons. No, but like if the kids start wandering past the radius, I want it to go bzzz. So I'm like, ah.
Or a shock collar where they get shocked.
Yeah.
So what I will say is that there's parents out there, and it depends, and there's different factors that play into it, but your life doesn't have to be completely over. People will say that, like, movies. You're never going to another movie again. Travel, that's out of the question. And it's just a matter of what you're willing to tolerate and how much you want. How dedicated you are to it.
Well, and I'll reframe a couple things. Here is a reality. The human baby is helpless. So if you want to be an engaged parent, like, if you want to, especially I'd say this for a guy, because I feel like a lot of times it might be easier for a guy to just like delegate all the hard work to the woman. Well, guess what? In some cases, you don't actually get that luxury because not everyone can breastfeed, for example. And if you have to do bottles, you know what the cycle is for bottle feeding? Like every 3 hours, you have to sanitize, which means boiling all the stuff, cleaning, getting it ready, mix the formula, put it all together, and then feed the child. Every 3 hours. Now, you need to sleep at some point, but every 3 hours that has to happen for the child. So the first few weeks are going to be like boot camp. But then you were just saying travel, all these things. I think children also adapt pretty well. So, for example, my friend Ty Verzoni, like one of my best friends all the way from high school, right? I barely see him. Why do I barely see him? Because he travels the globe. He's a globetrotter. He's been everywhere. And he's lived in multiple places. He's been a guide all over the world. When they had their kid, they brought her with them everywhere. They'd have pictures of them camping in the Himalayas and paragliding off the Alaskan mountains and all these things. And the little baby was with them. They didn't stop their life.
He's a beautiful half Asian man. Did he marry a half Asian or full Asian?
I don't think she's. I don't think she's. Is she have? I don't think she's Asian.
Oh.
But I don't know what her exact.
I don't know why I'm asking that, but
Yeah.
I just feel like because to be quarter Asian, you can sometimes kind of tell, but
She might be quarter or something.
yeah,
I don't remember.
And it, I don't know, like
She looks white to me.
I don't want to be like Jews will not replace us kind of a thing, but I just I like being Hapa and
You like being a half.
Yeah, I like being half, and I like seing people with half fees so that the halfy lineage. But it sounds so. What do you say? What did the genetic?
Oh yeah.
With the Nazis, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I definitely do.
And genetic engineering, trying to create the perfect race.
Yes. Eugenics.
Eugenics.
Eugenics is
Eugenics,
the study. Yeah.
Anyway, boy.
So you're a eugenicist.
What a weird tangent that was. But
but so the point, there's both realities. It is not easy. It does change your life, but you don't have to renounce who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Both are true.
And I feel like I have to shout out Alina, who is reviewing this episode before it airs. They are quarter Asian, so I don't want to say that quarter Asians.
I'll say one.
I think if because I'm a eugenicist and I believe that being at least partially Asian is the superior race, Alina, you're acceptable.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, I have 2% Asian in me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like when you did your DNA thing? Okay. Yeah. I wonder where that. So there must have been some Chinese people who came to South America to work, and one of your distant ancestors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it couldn't have come from the Spain side.
No, but it might, or it could just be that in the breakdown of Native American DNA, some of it is Asian. I don't know.
Well, they will typically delineate, and you know those genetic reports are a little deceiving in that. It's hard for them to know because they're making associations.
I have like 2% Ashkenazi,
but
2%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like 2% or something Asian.
Rebecca is 100% Ashkenazi Jew. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, wow.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm exactly 50% Japanese. Because Japan was an isolated country for me. Yeah. But it's kind of interesting. You think like where, because 2% seems like a low amount, but when you think about
the number, it couldn't have been that far back.
Right. It would be like one of your great grandparents was full Asian.
Right.
And what's the story there?
I'm also 20% God.
That makes you acceptable to me.
So the last thing I'll say about the kids thing is this. The first thing I was mentioning was like, ask yourself, why are you for whom you're doing it? Because the one danger that I see is, if you're not actually interested in doing it for the child, then maybe it's not a good idea, you know?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if it's just because, you know, you like the idea or whatever, because someone's going to have to be a parent to this child. And we need more children in this world with good parenting.
Right. I think another way to frame this is ask yourself, are you willing to put yourself second?
Yeah.
Not that that's exactly how it works, because you do matter and you have to put
your mask. You have
to put your oxygen on first. But there's a lot of instances in parenting that require you to put yourself second. Now, for a lot of people, that's not a problem because they're generous or giving or, they do this all the time. But for some people, you know, that is kind of a challenge. What I'll say to wrap this up is I've worked with some clients on this specific question, and what I will say in my experience is that the general advice that I have for people in super long-term anonymous middle tier patron and YouTube members position is to explore and talk and explore and talk and explore and talk and explore and talk. Because you can have all the pros and cons as what she is, she seems to have a lot of the pros and cons. And she's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
No one can tell you what to do. And no one can predict, even yourself, how all those pros and cons and predictions and values and needs and meanings of life, literally, are going to coalesce and cohere in your body, in your mind, in your soul, in your spirit, in your future, in your purpose, in your meaning, in you. But the way that it will cohere into a decision is through exploration and talking, and exploration and talking, and thinking and exploration and talking.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then it'll be slower to get to the point where you will feel like yes. Because for yourself, Berto, when you were 20, it was yes. When you were 25, it was maybe not.
Yeah.
When you were 35, your first kid was born.
Yeah, like 36, 35. Yes, 35.
Yeah, so 34, 35. It was probably like a 95% yes, right?
Yeah.
And how do you know that? All the factors were still there.
Right.
There's not new factors involved. I mean, maybe with the marriage stuff.
There was one other factor in our case that influenced the final decision. And it's that we had friends that were trying and we had conversations about it. Like you're saying, talk and discuss, right? We had conversations and we kind of shared the concerns. The other thing that was interesting is they were trying and they were having to do the IVF, in vitro or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so that sort of almost also made me think, oh, shoot, maybe we're not even able to. Like, have we thought maybe we can't? So then that was the last thing. It's like, well, we should try it, Yeah. Well, I think we're ready.
I will say that I was there when you were going through these phases.
You were in the room when it happened.
Yeah. I was cheering you on. I was telling you how to do it because you didn't
I didn't know. I'd never done it.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, not on the face, not on the face. And I will tell you that when you said that you and your wife were trying, I was a little shocked. I was pleasantly surprised, but I did not think that you had it in you.
Yeah.
I thought you were much more of a free spirit, if you will.
Sure.
And not exactly selfless.
Right.
But watching you with your kids, you absolutely are selfless. And that's another thing that I'll say is that some people will tell me that they don't think they have it in them. And maybe they don't. But biology kicks in. And unless there's something really wrong with you, which isn't typical, right? As long as you're not a psychopath, then in all likelihood, that internal capacity, a deep, overwhelming capacity for parenting and putting yourself second and focus and love kicks in when you have a kid. Now, having said that, there are situations like in postpartum depression or anxiety or something where it doesn't exactly kick in the way that everyone talks about, and if you're a woman in particular, it can be very distressing. So it doesn't always happen immediately. It doesn't have its complications sometimes, but I remember when you said that you guys were trying, I was like, oh, I don't
really?
And I didn't say this to you at the time, but I just thought like,
I remember you laughing in my face and pointing and saying that I'll never amount to anything as a father.
Yeah. But I've seen so many guy friends of mine that I've wondered that about and then saw them in action and just thought like, oh, wow. Like they absolutely, and why would I see that side of them because I'm not their child or, you know what I mean? So anyway, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, not on the face because
you deserve it.